All right. Well, welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Mindset. My name is Pete Deely, and I'm here with my professor, Professor Lucas Hubo. Professor,
How are you doing, Pete?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to see you again.
Yeah, me
Since
too, man. It looks like it was a long time already. It was just a week break, and
I know,
I was
well,
missing that.
me too. And we'll get to talk a little bit later about how you could have possibly missed a Friday with me.
Right.
What the event was. Um, and listen, I just it turns out that submission coffee tastes better in a submission coffee mug, and I'm in a submission or I'm in a Jiu-Jitsu mindset T-shirt. So
Perfect. You have
yeah,
everything that you need. Coffee is amazing. The mug it looks awesome, and hope your submission rate just went all the way up.
I'm pretty sure it did. I'm pretty sure that in the next 10 minutes, if someone came after me, it'd be trouble. So, and by the way, if you are interested in submission coffee, mostly we've been working with the people that are in our gym, and you can pick it up there. But we've had people that are interested outside our immediate community, and you can go to a wellrunlifegear.com, and you can find it very easily there. And then if you actually typed in submissioncoffee.com, it would take you to that site as well. So we've had like a bunch of people, Kevin's been great in our gym, and Zach and Mike and Janelle. Thank you guys for supporting us. It's a way to kind of offset our costs here at the podcast, and everybody's reported they've liked it. So thanks to those of you who have tried it, and for those of you who've not, we hope you give it a shot.
The legend says that on Kevin, he was making his coffee this morning before the 6:30 a.m. class, and he was starting to get late to the class, but he needed the coffee, man. It was like, dude, well, that coffee can miss a warm up and still gonna get it in time to submit everyone. So go
Exactly.
ahead.
The report that I heard is nobody could handle him, that he was a terror of that class. Well, speaking of being a Terra and competitive situations, we wanted to talk today about the competitive landscape of jiu-jitsu, because as somebody who's grown up in the United States and is used to, like, when we look at American football, we see the NFL, and whoever wins the Super Bowl, we know that that is like the champion of the world for the NFL. Major League Baseball might have two divisions, but we have the World Series, and we crown, the king of baseball at the end of the season. So when I've tried to evaluate, like, well, what's the analogy in the jiu-jitsu world, it's been hard for me to understand, Professor. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you if you could describe what are these different leagues all about? Like, I see IBJJF, ADCC, who's number one, CompNet. In preparation, you talked to me about NAGA, North
Yes.
American Grappling Association. So could you start to tease apart for us what these leagues are, and then what does it mean to be the winner of one of them versus the other? Like, does it matter, or does one
For
have more
sure.
respect to the other?
Uh-huh. Peter, first of all, I think is an awesome thing, right? That just is I believe is a reflection on how much jiu-jitsu is growing
Yeah,
and how many people have interest in jiu-jitsu in a competitive level, right? Not just to compete yourself, your team, and everything else, but also be try to organize events. So with the growth of the sport, and still as much we are, baby steps on becoming something more professional,
right,
and is already like way far away from what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago.
right.
So props for all the big organizations in jiu-jitsu that's making this amazing. But you have this misunderstood, right? What is the best? What is this? What is that?
Right.
We can talk a little bit about some of the main organizations and try to talk about the difference between them, right?
Yeah.
I'm still a huge fan of the IBJJF,
Okay.
that's the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation,
Right.
and that came several years ago from Master Carlos Gracie Jr. when couple podcasts ago, we were talking about
Right.
how his importance on the sport, on organizing and growing, and start to have the Brazilian Federation, and after start to spread jiu-jitsu to the world, right?
Right.
Having the first Pan American Championship was in Hawaii, and then we had some tournaments happening in LA, and then the Worlds was always happening in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I I will say probably 2006, I believe 2006 moving all the worlds now happening in United States. So
Okay.
IBJJF is still the main federation where you're gonna have the high level athletes
Okay.
and with a ranking system as well.
So um, just so that I review what you just said, make sure I understand it. So there was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation that was just in Brazil, and then
Correct.
Carlos Gracie Jr. exports it to the rest of the world, and then it becomes an international Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Foundation.
Correct.
And
Yes.
does that transition happen in the like 2006 timeframe, or does that go
Yeah, I'm
back?
pretty sure
Okay,
we can check during the podcast. You can just Google pretty fast, but
sure.
I believe the first Worlds in United States was in 2006.
Okay, okay. And how long was it just in Brazil? Was it a long time, or did it quickly become international?
No, the first Worlds was in 96 or 95.
Okay,
So it took about 10 years to spread and start to go to United States.
okay,
And then we still have, of course, the main champions on the black belt division. They're still Brazilian. We have more and more often happening that Americans and other people from other countries winning those
right.
divisions, which you see is a good thing, right? As a Brazilian, we always have the
Sure.
pride on like
Yeah,
keeping everything in Brazil, but at the same time, it's nice to see how things are growing and developing all around the world.
right.
You
Yeah.
have the very first American to be a world champ. I mean, the non-Brazilian to be a world champ was BJ Penn.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, as a black belt.
That's wild. Yeah, I sometimes I mean maybe we can talk about this a little later. I wonder about how the jiu-jitsu world views the UFC, whether they, I mean, obviously it owes a debt to the UFC in terms of bringing attention to jiu-jitsu. However, it's not the same, and I wonder if there's an element of people who are like, no, they don't respect it, or whether it's the opposite, where they feel like this is our colleague, so to speak, or our brother organization, or is there an opinion about it in the jiu-jitsu community at the high levels of the people organizing these? Do they consider it competition, or they just consider it a good thing that exists in the world?
No, it's a good thing, yeah, for sure. It's
Hmm.
it makes again, especially on back then when that first happened, it was a surprise, right?
Right.
Having BJ Penn
Yeah. Right.
winning, and we can talk a little bit like have a backstory about that. That's pretty cool. How he got his black belt and everything.
Okay.
And then after that was several years without having other person non-Brazilian
Hmm.
winning. But you see the main professors, most of the main professors, jiu-jitsu professors, are now United States and spread to different countries.
Yeah.
So which means the level of the sport just rise up, right?
Sure. Well, before we go then to like some of the other leagues, tell us the BJ Penn story, because that sounds pretty cool.
Oh yeah, so BJ Penn, he actually started to train with Half Grace
Mhm.
in San Francisco. He's Half has several schools in the Bay Area, and I believe he was there until his purple to brown belt. And then he ended up moving. He really wanna go to MMA, and start to already having some amateur fights. He ended up moving his team to Nova União. Nova União is a team led by the Pederneiras. If you guys are hearing us and you're a UFC fan, the Pederneiras is the coach from José Aldo, Renan Barão, and other Brazilians guys.
Okay.
So BJ Penn went as a brown belt to Brazil
Okay.
to do his camp to the Worlds,
Hmm.
and guys are like, man, this American is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Why do you think to give him a black belt? And the guys, especially back then, was like, no, American, he can be that tough.
Right.
they actually put BJ Penn in a trial inside the gym. So look, if you can beat those three guys, I'm gonna give you the black belt. And he ended up beating, and then he fought the worlds on the very next
Yeah.
week or so, and he was the world champion.
Is it true he drank submission coffee right before that fight? Is that
Every single day?
so this was sort of like out of an old kung fu movie, huh? They were like, look,
Yeah,
you can't we can't bestow the black belt on you until you can prove in combat that you are good enough to prove it. And he did, huh? And then he went
yeah.
on to
I
become.
saw an interview with BJ Penn, and he was saying that Pederneiras is a super nice guy, super polite and everything. And he was like, "Look, BJ, I really want to give the black belt, but you know how the guys here,
Mhm.
so let's do that test. It's not me, it's them."
Well, that's yeah, and obviously, he's gone on and the money. If I was an athlete and I was pursuing money, I mean, the money still seems to be much more
Yeah.
in the UFC than it would be
Oh
in
yeah.
in that. So BJ Penn translated his skills, and I mean, and I don't deeply know the background of MMA, but he seemed to be one of those people who helped transition the notion that if you don't have jiu-jitsu skills, you won't make it in the MMA. Like that,
I agree,
right,
100%.
he was one of those people that kind of proved I think the Gracies in the 90s, wanted to make the point that if you want to be a great fighter in the world, you're going to need to have jiu-jitsu in your bag of tricks. You can't just
Yeah.
be a striker and you know.
BJ Penn, he's super tough, and he ended up having actually a really, really good striking and boxing.
Hmm.
But his main thing is jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That's what he promotes, and that's what he's still trained. That's what he teaches, and he has couple jiu-jitsu schools in Hawaii. So that's his thing, and he was one of my favorite fighters to watch.
Hmm.
Not just because he's a super tough guy, but because he has amazing jiu-jitsu. You could see like
Yeah.
some great transitions. Have
Hmm.
one fight with Matt Hughes that was amazing. How he took the back all of a sudden, and
Right.
and like you were saying, on a money perspective, the transition to MMA and hopefully right the main event of UFC, that
Hmm.
was the natural path to jiu-jitsu competitors,
Okay.
because you're gonna be able to gain at the time only so much as a jiu-jitsu athlete,
Right.
right? Again, now finally the sport is
Yeah.
becoming way more professional, and people are being able to have a good living being an athlete and not just a school owner
Right.
and teaching seminars and things like that. But that was a natural transition. A lot of jiu-jitsu athletes that end up going to UFC, if you ask them now, they would say like, no, I didn't want to do that, but that's what I need to do.
Right.
Like, I don't want to fight, but that's what I need to do.
Yeah, but on BJ Penn, so CrossFit has its hero wads, right? So, and one of the hero wads is Fight Gone Bad. Maybe you've done that workout, and
Yeah.
so that was named after when Greg Glassman went out to train BJ Penn for some period of time. He were working on getting him to be better conditioned, and so they designed this workout, Fight Gone Bad,
Oh,
and it
nice.
was for BJ Penn. So, for those of you who are CrossFit athletes and you've done the Fight Gone Bad hero wad, it's actually named after a training session set up for BJ Penn.
Oh, that's awesome. How's that session? Do you know? How
Oh
was the
yeah,
training?
it's a chipper, right? So it's like you got wall balls that moves into like push presses. I think double unders are in it, and I think it has a row, and it's like I think it's every minute on the minute. Goes through the circuit, and then you have 3 circuits. So you come up with a Fight Gone Bad total, and obviously in the competitive situation, then whoever has the highest number wins. So
Nice.
yeah, that's what the Fight Gone Bad workout was like. Well, what about some of these other ones like the ADCC? What
Okay.
that and this, who's number one for whatever reason, like they seem to I don't know whether they have a relationship or not, but in my social
Mhm.
media feed, the ADC post seems to show up very soon after I see the WNO post. So what are these leagues about?
Yeah. So first, just coming back a little bit about the
Oh,
worlds, I
yeah.
just checked here. The very first Jiu-Jitsu Worlds from IBJJF was in 1996.
Okay.
And it was in Rio de Janeiro until 2006. So the first one in United States was 2007.
Okay. So it took
And
about 10 years to
yeah,
make that transition from a national organization to an
yes.
international organization.
And before that, before the transition to the Worlds here in United States, the Pan Ams start to happen here. So
right.
I think it was like 99, 2001 or something like that. It was late 90s, early 2000s. So it probably was more like a test, right? I see how many competitors can we actually have in other place, but in Brazil. And well, now you can see how amazing sport is. But talk about the other federations. So let's see on this way. IBJJF is not only, they don't have only the world championship, right? They have several tournaments through the year.
Right.
Which in a black belt adult division, you need to qualify to be able to compete as a on the worlds. Okay, right. So on this, you're gonna have a couple rankings. It's a point system by getting a bronze medal, silver, gold, and let's keep on that way. Tournaments like ADCC is different in a lot of aspects. First of all, ADCC is only no gi.
Okay. What does it stand for, by the way? I don't know what it stands for.
The ADCC?
Yeah.
Be honest, I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know that.
I'll look it up here while we're talking. Yeah, I never. Okay, so it's only no gi.
But the first ADCC, so the several ADCCs was in Abu Dhabi. So I don't know, maybe Abu Dhabi Championship. I don't know. I have something related to that on the letters, but if you can find that before I finish, it'll be awesome.
Right.
But ADCC is a grappling tournament, so it's not only exclusive to Jiu-Jitsu people.
Okay. So it's a grappling tournament that extends. Is there a qualifying system to get in?
Yes.
Okay.
So ADCC happens every other year in different parts of the world. So now this, by the way, next week we will have the ADCC happening in Las Vegas. The year before, I think it was in Finland, Europe, and have some in Brazil, in China, in Abu Dhabi, and all kinds. So it's always in different places. So we have Jiu-Jitsu players on ADCC. You have wrestlers. We have judo players. You have guys from Sambo. That's kind of like a Russian mix with judo and Jiu-Jitsu. And you need to qualify to go to those events. So you have only a couple trials on the world. Right. So have one on East Coast, one on West Coast, have two also in Brazil, I think one in Europe, another one or two in Asia, so have a couple of trials that only the champion is select to go to the ADCC.
Okay. And so I found it, by the way. So if you don't know, I'm guessing a lot of people don't know what the ADCC stands for. So when somebody asks you at your next Jiu-Jitsu party, for those of you listening, you're going to know the answer. It is the Abu Dhabi Combat Club. So that's what the ADCC.
I was close. Abu Dhabi Championship.
You were close, but here we. So anyway, so this is really an organization revolving around identifying the champion in no gi, and it doesn't have a ton of tournaments. There are qualifying tournaments that lead to these championship competitions. Yes. Okay.
And they also, the federation, the organization of the ADCC, they also invite some former champions or other people that are shining on the sport on whatever that year, and it just makes things absolutely interesting. The rule set's different. It's almost a tournament where everything's allowed but punch and kicks. Okay. So ripping is allowed, heel hooks all the time, like slams. For example, if we're going to pull guys, so if you're hearing us and you are not used to have the language of Jiu-Jitsu, pull guys when you force the fight going to the ground when you are on bottom, right? It's different than the takedown when you try to put your partner down when you finish on top. On pull guy, you're gonna bring your partner down and you're gonna be on bottom, right? Work of subs and submissions. So if you pull guard on ADCC, on the first 5 minutes, you get a minus point. Okay, so that's a penalty. Yeah, it's a penalty, and also the first 5 minutes, no points are scored.
Okay.
So I can take you down, I can take your back, mount everything. After the 5 minutes done, if nothing else happened those 5 minutes, no points. And then after that, things start to happen.
How long do these fights go on for? I mean, is there a time limit?
So I believe on the qualify system, like on the qualify phase, it's about a 10 minutes match.
Okay.
I think the finals is about 20 minutes.
Wow.
Have some rounds, and it's a little bit different. So I need to look exactly what it is. But again, no points score in the first 5 minutes, minus points for pull guard on the beginning. Every year you have the open weight, and the open weight champion going to do a super fight in the next year. So it's pretty interesting the way how they make things happen there.
So say that again, because I didn't quite follow. So the open weight is come on in, whoever you want. Like, does the biggest guy win? Typically, or
not necessarily.
Okay, all right.
Not
so when you say like the winner of the open weight has a super fight, what's a super fight?
So the weight system in ADCC is by kilograms, not pounds, right? So it's, the lightest one is 60 kilos, and then 77, 88, 99, and over 100 kilos.
Okay.
So those are 5 divisions that they have. Okay. When you're going to fight on those divisions, you can also select yourself to find the open weight,
right?
Which is the division where it doesn't have weight limit. So if a 60 kilos registers to the open weight, he might fight someone with 99 kilos plus, over 100 kilos and everything. Yeah. So whoever wins that separate division, the open weight, of course, you're going to be the ADCC world champion on open weight. On the following year, so remember, it's every other year the ADCC happen. On the following event, that champion is qualified for the super fight. Okay. And who he's going to fight? They're going to fight the champion for the super fight on the event before.
Okay, so they get the winner of year one will fight the winner of like the previous one, and that's the super fight. Well,
yes.
That must create some exciting. So these are the folks that show up for ADCC, not just coming up through the jiu-jitsu ranks, but there's a whole grappler, like there's a whole competition system for grapplers as well, which I didn't know about until just recently. And in fact, do you know anybody who's competed in the North American Grappler Association competitions?
Probably not.
You're not ready to claim the belt?
Well, so I have another tournament, right, called the NAGA. NAGA is the National American Grappling Association. And the NAGA, actually, you can compete in gi and no-gi.
Okay.
And the no-gi is pretty similar to the ADCC.
Okay.
About the rule system, right? They on no-gi is not by belts; it's about skill levels.
Okay.
So white and blue belts compete against each other. Purple, brown, and black compete against each other.
Okay.
And then on the purple, brown, and black, you're gonna have rules like usually it's not allowed for the lower belts, like heel hooks, knee ripping, calf slice, bicep slice, things like that. They're allowed on the competition as well, but again, please don't understand me wrong. We will never compare NAGA with an ADCC because it's a completely different skill levels on the fighters over there.
Okay. So these are I mean, and as somebody who doesn't understand really, like, what's the prestige of one versus the other. So there are some leagues that have more prestige than others, and some championships that carry with it a different connotation. And so in a certain sense, it feels to me like IBJJF is the kind of the most established. Is that fair to say? Like, kind of.
Absolutely.
So that's sort of the most well-known, and then ADCC is only for no-gi, so it has like a really, if you're the champion there, everyone knows, like, you're the no-gi champion. So one of the things that I've been seeing recently, just that I didn't never heard about just until a month or so ago, is this WNO. So how does that fit into the picture? Is that it feels like it's something new, but I don't really have a point of view on that. Like maybe it's been around and I just learned about it, but is it?
Yeah, no, that's been something fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
At least I like you, I just haven't heard about who's number one on the last year or so, maybe 2 years ago.
Right.
Uh, and a lot of those tournaments, like who's number one, Third Coast Grappling, they had
Mm-hmm.
like, especially when we were during the pandemic, when everything was closed and tournaments, the gathering wasn't allowed. Those tournaments they start to become pretty popular because they're pretty much the only platform that competitors could keep themselves competing, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's a different system as well. So on those events like Fight to Win, Third Coast Grappling, who's number one, they're always a special match. So it's not like a regular tournament where you're gonna have 60 competitors and you're gonna make like 6 fights in a day,
Right.
right? You already know against who you're going to fight. Like in a UFC, for example, the card is already done. You're gonna have one fight,
Mm-hmm.
and they have some different type of rules. Usually, okay, not all, but usually those type of tournaments they are submission only. So the
Okay.
points it doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's a submission only. So you're always going to the submission, and even if you don't have the submission, how you win, right? Whoever is attacking more, like who is closer to submission. So let's
Okay.
pretend that you took me down,
Mm-hmm.
you passed my guard, you mount. At the end, I was able to escape, and I hold on like a super tight foot lock,
Right.
okay, which you didn't tap.
Mm-hmm.
But I was closer to the submission than you.
Okay.
So on this type of organization, probably the referee will see that I was closer to win the match because I was actually close to submission, even though you kind of like control part of the
Okay.
fight,
Right. Yeah.
right? And so they attempt to do some things like that.
Yeah, I have to say, like the vibe that I was getting when I looked at this WNO social media post, which is really the extent of my knowledge, is that it felt much more like a commercial event. Like it was designed to create an opportunity for fans to look at some really specific people fighting, to call attention to
Mm-hmm.
ticket sales, which I don't have any objection to, but it didn't seem my limited exposure to IBJJF is that this is an organization that has massive scope and, has a lot about the tradition of the sport and all the rest of it,
Yes.
where this WNO feels much more um, like a pay-per-view type event that, somebody might put on for special. Well, I mean, for those of us who are beginners, myself, as a beginner, many of us find like these competent competitions. So could you kind of locate for we both believe, and I'm somebody who's had my first competitions,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had them go a bunch of different ways in the couple that I've done. So we feel like it's good for those of you listening that haven't tried a competition. One, we want you to get in jiu-jitsu. Two, we want you to stick with jiu-jitsu. Three, we want you to try a competition because we feel like you'll learn something. So my competitions mostly have been with this organization, CompNet. And could you
Mm-hmm.
locate that in the world of, is this more for people like me who are just kind of brand new and want to try the experience, or does it have a larger place in the,
So tournaments like CompNet is a tournament owned by Gracie Barra,
okay.
right? So only students from Gracie Barra are
Mm-hmm.
allowed to compete at the CompNet.
Okay.
And the size of Gracie Barra being the biggest jiu-jitsu team in the world, it makes things really interesting on that competitive scenario because you can have a lot of CompNets going on around, even around the country, right? Like maybe 2 weeks ago, we had a component happen in California.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend, now we're going to have a component happen in Arizona. The following week, we have one in Colorado. We're going to have the component nationals in Austin, Texas.
Right.
In September, we're going to have one of the component worlds happening in Brazil. So it's a federation inside Gracie Barra. And what's the benefit of that? Not only united the team as a
Mm-hmm.
whole, right? But bring the safe and friendly environment to a
Yes.
competition,
Yeah.
right? We talk a lot, Peter, about how intimidating jiu-jitsu can is,
Sure.
especially what your fears on competition, right? Your fear to failure, your fear to prove yourself, to disappoint someone, to get hurt, to not know
Right.
what's going to happen.
Yes.
And what Gracie Barra tried to do is make that experience more friendly and I would say better, especially for when you're beginning, right? When you're starting to do the competition, for you don't be in a place where you don't know the rules, you don't know the referees, you don't know the system, you know everything's so crazy. You go to a place where you're more familiar with. You're gonna have your professor close to you. You're probably gonna maybe know who
Right.
you're going to fight with, which doesn't mean we won't be nervous at all, right? We're still gonna have the adrenaline, the anxiety, and everything else, but it definitely makes a really good impression about what competition, what tournament is.
Yeah, I would say as somebody who's participated in those, for those of you listening, particularly, if you're listening and you're with us at our gym, it's really, really worth it to endure the anxiety of signing up for your first time and going through the process, because you will have an irrational fear of it. Like it will, for me, it was an outsized fear, right? It really isn't materially different than, rolling with my teammates. I mean, it has a more aggressive, it feels more aggressive, but
Yeah.
I wasn't in any danger, but you would have thought I was about to be attacked by a tiger if you were like going to check my heart rate and all the rest of it. But going through those experiences and living to tell the tale at the end of it was really a way to make training more interesting, because I'm thinking about, hey, I got to show up the best I can be. And it made it more fun to be a part of the community, because now you come back and you have the stories. Did you see Mateo do this? Did you see, Brett do that? I mean, it gives you fun things to kind of talk about, and it made me feel a part of the community. So overcoming something I was afraid of, it was useful. Feeling more deeply a part of the community was useful.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the experience of competing gives you a chance to feel like a sense of progression, because I've done it now a few times, and although I'm nervous, I'm less nervous than I was the previous time, and feel more in control and less afraid to kind of let my brain
Uh-huh.
actually dictate what's doing, rather than just feeling super afraid and then forgetting everything that I've learned, which has happened to me
So
as
now,
well.
Peter, let me make you a question. Let's invert our job here.
Okay.
So now this Saturday, so guys, tomorrow, Peter, one more time, I'm gonna be stepping up to the challenge and competing. That will be your fourth tournament,
Yes.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. Yeah.
What's the feeling now, comparing to your very first tournament?
Yeah. So the very first one, we talked a little bit in a previous episode about the notion of embarrassment, right? And so I didn't want to show up and like look over to my teammates and have them like look away, like no, we don't know that guy. I wanted to represent my school, my professor, my group really well. I didn't want to get hurt. That was a fear as well. Like I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
would my competitor have the same respect as my teammates? Would they
Mm-hmm.
respect, would the ref be able to keep me safe if things got out of hand, and the guy that
Mm-hmm.
I was fighting, would the tap be respected in the same way? And so now I've taken the fear of, will the tap be respected by my competitor and the ref? Yeah. So, like I can take that off my plate. Um, my teammates have seen me both win and lose now, and so I don't feel like I'm going to show up and I'm going to embarrass them in the same way, whether I win or I lose. Like I realize that my teammates are with me win or lose. My professors, you're going to be proud of my effort and not my outcome. And so,
Exactly.
like I no longer have that concern of like I'm going to be exposed as knowing absolutely nothing, even though I'm over 2 years as your student now. And I'm I'm more excited than I am nervous. And so it's taken me, I would say this is the first time where I'm more excited to participate than I am afraid of participating. And I don't have an opinion like, oh, I'm not excited to win. I'm excited to just go down, be a part of it, to take the worry out of the experience, and then just enjoy like being with the teammates, hearing the stories of, who's competed around me.
That's
And
awesome.
and it's my teammates and you that helped me through that. And so if you're listening and you're a beginner like me, I think you got to trust your teammates and trust your professor that it's probably true that they have the same opinion. Like they just want you to go have the experience. You don't need to win to make them proud. Like they want you just to go down and do your best and try it, because it's hard to make the choice. Like going from no competitions to one competition, I think is the hardest threshold to cross, like you've done a million competitions, and, we'll talk a little bit about your experience here in a second. So you have a whole different set of things that you're thinking about. But, as an older beginner, getting over going 0 to 1 made me really want to do it as much as possible. So that's been, yeah, I mean, I would say that sums it up for me.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
thank
good.
you.
That's good.
Well, you have been competing for a long time, and you've competed at high levels. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about, preparation for competing at the high level, and then the experience of competing at a high level, because my guess is that it's the beginner. My experience is that the other person's as nervous as I am, and they have similar objectives. Like, let me get through this. Okay. Let me, have a good showing. But for you, you and your competitor are there to win. And that's, you're through all the, like, oh, you're in now, this is about competition, and somebody's going to come out on top, and that's much more the focus than obviously.
Yes.
So what's it like?
So
Start with preparation too. Like, what's it
sure.
like?
I'm gonna talk about my last experience, right? That was last week, by the way. So
Yes.
guys, last week we were talking about IBJJF, and IBJJF hosts one of the biggest, if not the biggest, jiu-jitsu tournament, is the Master Worlds. Happen in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's a 3 days tournament, which we have all the masters. So that means 30 years old and up, with master 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 7. That was my main goal for the year on a competitive scenario, right? I became master not too long ago. I'm 32 years old. I compete the worlds a couple times in a brown belt, in a purple belt, and I had a good result, especially as a purple belt in 2016. I got third place at the worlds, and so it was after probably last year. I only did 1 or 2 tournaments, and it's something that I was putting that as a goal. But when you put a tournament like that as a goal, you need to have other tournaments in between to prepare yourself for that, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
When an NBA player start a season, he's
Right.
not on his very best shape, right? All the process of the games and his physical preparation is for, at the playoffs, he's going to be on his very best to
Right.
perform better in a high level. So that was what I tried to do through the year. So right in the beginning of the year, January I already did 1 tournament, February I did another 1. I think April I did 2, and try to keep every other month at least competing. So training all through this time.
So so if you're kind of, I mean, to use an expression in other sports, I mean, you're trying to peak at a certain time. Like
Correct.
you were
Yes.
planning on sort of building up to
Yes.
the whole year is organized. Your training, your
Uh-huh.
competing is organized, focused on this one tournament.
Yes, and that goes on all the aspects of a competition. That's not only your jiu-jitsu training.
Right.
It's your lifting, is your cardio training, is your diet, is your rest, right? So all this is something that I was building up all through the year to be on my very best now, which I believe that I did I believe that now I'm way better in all those aspects, in a technical level, in a physical level, in a mindset, than I was on the beginning of the year. So I consider my preparation pretty successful
Right.
on this.
And so if you're listening to this in some time in the future of 2022 and you're listening back on an old podcast, if this is in the future, we're talking about September of 2020, January of 2022 up until September. So it's like having a baby. You have 9 months of preparation.
Exactly.
And so all of these different aspects, your physical preparation, your technical preparation, your mindset, you feel like those 9 months go as well as they could go, that you accomplished your goal from that perspective.
Yes. So can talk a little bit. You always gonna have some bumps on your road, right?
Right.
On my first tournament this year in late January, I was training, just coming back from holidays, right? Which I was still training, but you always relax a little bit more on what you're eating and how much you're actually training. But I try to keep, I try to be really consistent. And I consider that I do that pretty well, like on my consistency on training and my commitment to what I eat, right, to my diet. But training that, and my last training before my first tournament this year, I dislocated my ribs. That was on Thursday, and I was fighting on Saturday. I was like, oh, damn.
The ribs, too. There's no way to avoid them. I mean, it's nothing you can do.
But again, this is not my first time, right? This already happened before. So, and I knew that was, all right, let's do whatever we can do. And on the fight, being honest, I didn't feel nothing. Like I didn't feel anything that was after for sure. But during the fight, I didn't feel that was something that was holding me off. It held me off a couple of weeks after because I was a little bit concerned. I don't want to have a major injury right now.
Yeah.
And and then on the other tournament, I was lucky to fight the guy that actually just won the Worlds, submitting all his 5 fights.
Wow.
So I fought with him in the semifinals, which was an amazing experience to fight against him. So I was having like some pretty good challenges on every tournament that I was going for, and which was awesome. I'm grateful for that because again, I was just making my best for the Worlds right now.
Right.
Have only so much that we can control, right?
Right.
And on my daily basis, on what I do for a living, plus what I want to do as a competitor, plus my duties to my family. Sure. I did everything that I could do, right, on my scenario.
Yes.
Unfortunately, my fight didn't went the way how I want. So on the tournament last week, I had 66 people on my bracket, on my division.
Wow.
Which will give me 6 matches, 6 wins, right, to be the champion.
Right.
On my very first match was a boring match to watch. For sure. I was 6 minutes stuck on my partner's close guard, which props to him to hold me over there. But nothing happened, right? No advantage, no points, no penalties. And was a referee decision that ended up going for my opponent.
Right.
And of course, during the match and after the match, I got really frustrated and really upset.
Right.
But after you reflect a little bit, and we talked about that before, Peter, like losing give us a self-reflection.
Right.
When you win, you don't think much on the things that you did wrong. It'll work.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you didn't commit any mistake because you won, right?
Right.
So it gave, like, I was thinking a lot about it, like, what could I do different? And of course, I could do some things different in a technical way. Right. But at the same time, it just like, I'm not upset about the result. I'm upset about not being able to translate all the hard work that I had for 9 months to a match, right? So that was the most upset part.
Yes.
Man, everything that I know, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, let me ask you a question about your mindset the day of, like, because now, like, we're at different ends of the spectrum, right? Like every tournament for me is a new experience, more or less. So what does it feel like for you? You have now 20 years of tournaments that you've been competing in. you're you're showing up prepared, so you're
Mm-hmm.
physically, like I asked you, you felt great on the
Yep.
way in. um, what types of thoughts are you having up until you slap hands and start? Like what's your mental state going into this particular fight?
Be honest, now is happiness. Like
Okay.
for
Yeah.
I don't know what word I could use, but it just
Yeah.
happy, I'm happy to be there.
Right.
Like I was excited and happy to be there. And that's how tournaments have been for me lately. Not in a super stressful the way how it used to be.
Right.
It should be, man, like always like it. No one ever forced me to do a tournament. Like no one, you gotta do it. No,
Right.
this
Right.
never happened. But I was putting myself on the spot. And a lot of times like, man, why I am doing that? For real. Like I'm tired. Like
Yeah.
I wanna eat,
Yeah.
like all those excuse that we create to make, man, I'm actually like a little bit sick, like you start
Yeah.
to
Right.
create a lot of things, which can happen, of course, but you
Sure.
start to create a couple of things to self-sabotage. Now I'm just like, I want to fight, I want to compete, I want to do my very best. Like that's what I would ask for. Like I want to be able to perform what I know
Yeah. So
and be
you're
happy
the
about it.
when I if I met the Professor Lucas Hubo at 22 and then compared your experience competing 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever, and today, like what is the primary, because you weren't new 10 years ago, you had
Mm-hmm.
you were an old hand at doing this at that point. But
Uh-huh.
what's in terms of maturing as an athlete, it sounds like you enjoy it maybe more, like it was more,
Yeah.
there's more anxiety in your past than it is currently. Is there anything else that you think is a big difference between you as a younger man, as you as now a master's athlete?
I think now knowing what's happening with me, you
Yes.
know, it's
Yeah.
not about I not even talking about like technical way, like
No. Right.
when you were color belt, you might have some positions that man, I cannot be there,
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
like I hope this don't happen. But as a like, and then on the other belts and training a lot and like now in the black belt, you kind of like you were comfortable in pretty much everything. Of course, we're gonna have your main positions that we want to do, but
Right.
at least one thing or two about everything, right? Like
Yes.
don't be overwhelmed about the position. I think the main thing for me now is knowing what I'm feeling, what my body is trying to
Yeah.
tell me.
Yeah.
Because I remember like first, second, third, or whatever, how many competitions I was just like, man, I wanna throw up. I
Yes. Right.
wanna I don't know. I don't want to do that. Like I'm afraid. Like I was not happy at all. Super tense, super stressful. Like didn't want to talk or nothing.
Right.
And now is you translate all that anxiety that I know that all those feelings is anxiety to happiness mode. Like man, I'm excited. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's fight. I wanna win. Of course, I wanna win.
Sure.
But I don't wanna. Oh, now I wanna be able to do my best.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like a primary difference between my experience, your experience is that like your brain is telling your body what to do, and like there's good communication between your brain and your body. In the last tournament that I was in, I slapped hands, and everything that I had planned in my head, all the good advice that my teammates, Jim was like, he gave me great advice, so did a bunch of other, completely evaporated. And I wasn't even under threat. It wasn't like my opponent did something to me. I just I completely lost the ability to think, and I just was reacting. And
Uh-huh.
my goal is to be able to like show up and have a notion of what I'm going to do and actually
Yeah.
execute and be calm enough in my relationship to the competition. So I'm like on the, I'm back to when you were like 13. I'm probably like that's the version of an athlete that I am. One of the things that like impressed me in our conversation that I think is important, like as I've said in the past about Professor, Lucas, like he's competing at a professional athlete level, but he has, as he said, like a lot of obligations, including running, a very successful gym, and he's got a beautiful wife and a family, and all the things that go along with being responsible to those things. There's an awful lot in your life besides just training for these competitions.
Mhm.
And in spite of all that, you had extraordinary discipline, in my opinion, to have a plan to peak at the right time, which requires you to manage your time and all the competing interests of people wanting your attention and needing you to do this, that, and the other thing. You
Yep.
navigated that remarkably well. And then, so you show up having had this extraordinary 9 months of preparation, and then somebody kind of took away, and from an outsider's perspective, the chance to have a good fight by like really making it a technical experience rather than like, okay, he was able to cinch something down and keep the fight from being fun to watch. And yes, that person might have won a technical victory. But so what impressed me then is like all of that, and then you were able to enjoy yourself and not let that be the thing that dominated your experience. I mean,
Yes.
you could have
Yes.
become a really unpleasant person to be like,
Yeah. I agree, Peter. I think, first of all, I think like you should grieve for something that
yeah,
it didn't happen the way how you were wishing. And I did that, like being honest, like the match finish, I was like, I wasn't happy, So a lot of times I can lose a match and I still gonna be smiling and just give a props to my opponent, like, yeah, you were a better man today, which I don't think it happened on that
yeah,
day.
hmm,
But it is also out of my opponent's control, like of course he was doing that. Maybe I don't know if that was his game plan. Okay, I don't know if he just
yeah,
wanna hold me there or nothing, but that's what happened, and that gave him the victory,
yeah, right,
so that's good for him. And so right after, like I just sat right by the match. I was like my head down and thinking like, man, I can't believe it. I know like I could win, and I know like I will be able to perform better and have a better
yeah,
run to the championship. I sat there for maybe like 20 minutes, like sad. But after that, like, you know what, it's done. I'm still a better person for everything
right.
that I did, and that result won't change anything that I did to be where I am today.
Yeah, and
So
that's
now
one of
let's
the
go, let's have fun. We're in Vegas.
and I think that's one of the things I love about you. I mean, is that when we talk about jujitsu is for everybody, and it's worth studying and being a good student of jiu-jitsu for all the other way it enhances your life. And if you didn't believe that, if that wasn't who you are, then you wouldn't tell me that story. You would tell me
Yeah,
a different story of, you know what, for 3 days after that, I was pissed off and I didn't know, nobody wanted to be around me. I think you're right. If you don't grieve like
yeah.
the outcome that you didn't want,
It's, I believe, you always gonna grieve.
right,
It's our responsibility to let ourselves grieve on the right time,
right,
right? It just happens. So let it be.
yeah,
Grieve and do your self reflection and try to think on what could you do different and what can you do different for the next time. Because if you
right.
postpone this feeling will keep chasing you,
Yes,
and
yes,
we will have worse experience on the future, and maybe you're even gonna get even more frustrated in the future
yeah,
about your training, and
yeah,
you blame everyone else but you, and
yes,
the
yeah.
reality is you were fighting there, right?
Right. Yeah, that's really well said. And so I think if you're listening and you're a beginner, we want to encourage you to take to try this. And then if you are somebody who's been in this for a long time, I think if you're not like that, if the outcome doesn't come out to be what you want it to be, and you find yourself holding on to that grief in a way that makes it difficult for other people to be around you, it's worth it to listen to Professor Lucas here, because um, it has to be something that you experience and then let go. Otherwise, you're spending too much energy on something that then is counterproductive to you. You got to
Yeah,
have your moment and then you got to move on. And that's true in so many things, right? Like
yeah,
we all have our wins and losses in all the different areas of our life.
I agree.
And listen, we need to make sure we acknowledge out of our gym comes a world champion with Ronnie. And so, Ronnie, we are very proud of you, and thank you for, representing us so excellently and winning your belt and your age and your weight division is
Correct.
extraordinary.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. It was awesome to see Ronnie being able to translate all his hard work to that day. He was
Yes.
a guy that is being for the last year or two committing like so much time of his day on in jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
having a 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning workout and early morning jiu-jitsu classes, private classes, competition class, and rolling at night, private class on the weekends, literally been training 7 days a week. Of course, respecting some days also his body and resting,
Right.
but it was really rewarding to see him be able to perform and winning that gold medal.
Yes. Yeah. That was so, next year I intend to be there one way or the other. And it was so fun to get a chance to see the pictures. And Ronnie, we're so proud of you, and we know how much you
Yeah,
put into this.
and guys, if you're hearing us, and again, being a jiu-jitsu competitor or not, I recommend everyone go to jiu-jitsu IBJJF Master Worlds. At least to go there and watch.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
amazing the high level of jiu-jitsu that we have over there, and not just amazing matches to watch. All the legends, and literally the legends, we had some like Coral belts walking by us.
Right.
Master Carlos Gracie Jr. were there. Master Carson Gracie Jr. was there. Fabio Gurgel. So many names. The leader of all of the teams they're hanging out and having their booth and a lounge for you watch the matches. It's just an amazing experience. You should go.
So one of the fun social media things for me out of that tournament is that I had no idea who I was talking to, but the very first time I went in to talk to a jiu-jitsu professor, it was Professor Megaton out here. And so I went in, and I was CrossFit was sort of my primary activity at the time. And I went in, and he was very gracious, had a really terrific conversation. And I didn't feel like I could do CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu at the same time. Just my life wouldn't allow for two commitments like that. And then he got his coral belt at the Worlds. And then I
Yeah.
come to learn that I was talking to somebody who's been a part of like every major competition for the last 30 years.
Yeah, Megaton is the only athlete that did all the Jiu-Jitsu World Championship as a black belt in adult division.
It's amazing.
So since 1996, he's been competing as a black belt in the World Championship, and he's now, I think, 50 or 51 or something like that, and he's still putting himself against the young guys.
Yeah. It was really cool to see, to see that. And the coral belt is what, after 30 years, right? So, I mean,
After 31 years being a
31
black
years,
belt.
31 years of being a black belt. Amazing. Well, Ronnie, again, congrats to you. Phoenix is turning into a hotbed of talent out there.
Yeah.
But listen, in your pre-fight music, what do you got? What are you playing to get yourself ready to fight? What's in your phone
All
that you're
right.
listening
So I
to?
have a couple options.
Okay.
Some days, I will be honest, some days I don't even put a music. I just have my headphone and make sure no one's talking with me.
Oh, very smart. Good strategy.
It's a good way just to, be able to concentrate and focus. And so I just put it, people think you're listening something.
Oh
So I
no, the
just keep it
secret, the
nice and
secret's
quiet.
out now, Professor. When I come up to you and you're like, Pete, I'll know you're just you're trying to.
But other than that, I put usually music that make me happy,
Okay.
like make me want to move. I know
Mhm.
some people they like to go like a really heavy metal or something like that, or hip hop, or
Right.
all kind of different songs. And usually during the week when I'm training and with my headphones or when I have a speaker around,
Right.
I already have some songs that will make me want to go hard, and
Right.
that feeling that you can go hard as you can and never get tired, right? We are always gonna have some songs like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and those I just get back to them and try to listen when I really need. But sometimes is most part of the time is just something that makes me happy. So you can go all around, not necessarily a super excited music, but it's
Right.
something that gives you good memories, you know, make you kind of like your mindset light and just go and have fun.
So are is the music mostly from Brazil, or is it like music we'd all
uh,
be familiar with, or
yeah,
what?
no,
Give us a
both.
tune. All right, give us a tune that might be
Well,
on
it
the.
can be sometimes Eminem, you know, like is a good beat and stuff like that. Sometimes even like samba.
Mm-hmm.
That's well is a Brazilian rhythm.
Sure.
Uh, Sometimes music related to carnival
Right.
or like axé. That's another Brazilian type of music.
Asher.
Axé.
Asher. Okay. That's a style of
It's
music. That's a word
yeah,
I don't know. Okay.
yeah, it's a style of music or even
Okay.
funk.
Okay.
So funk, like in United States
Sure.
and Brazil, funk is two completely different things.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
same name but completely different.
What makes a Brazilian funk song? I mean, what?
Nothing compared to
Nothing compared to its
like
own
no,
animal, huh?
it's more about the beats.
Right.
It's a good rhythm, you know, to that makes you like want to dance, you know,
Sure.
kind of thing, want to move
Yeah.
and then even some of the music with kind of like a fun
Mm-hmm.
lyrics, you know, that you can you know smile, laugh a little bit.
Right.
But it can go sometimes even like ACDC is a band that I like a lot. Uh, like rock in general.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so
So
all
you guys,
kinds.
so all kinds of stuff. You know, a question that I want to ask you that I didn't tell you I was going to ask you is that you're a musician. Does being a musician impact, do you think your musical skills translate to your jujitsu skills? Do you think there's a relationship
I
between?
wish. I wish you had. uh, Peter, I think for the learning process,
Hmm.
everyone has a background, right? And that can be not necessarily in a sport. Like a good dancer will
Right.
be able to learn sports pretty well because it's a super coordinate right exercise.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to have a really good coordination and a really good body conscious, understanding
Yes.
your
Yeah.
body, how to move. So usually dancers they do really well in jiu-jitsu especially
Sure.
because you know balance and things like
Hmm.
that. And I think sometimes the music can help you on the rhythm on
Yes.
the positions, you know, like a good pace, understand the timing of the position, especially like if you go a little bit deep on what you're talking like the foot sweeps. Right,
Yes.
foot sweeps are takedowns, are techniques that are super about the timing,
Yeah.
and you understand that good pace on the walk, on the steps from your opponent. When you take that away, is when you're gonna be more successful on your takedowns for the foot sweeps.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a terrible musician. Like I'm a worse musician than I am a jujitsu player. But I've, I, I have friends who are great musicians. And when I was watching some clips of Muhammad Ali and of all of the fighters in the history of fighting any sport, Muhammad Ali is my favorite to watch. And when I watch him, what I get so excited about is the rhythm of his movements
Yeah.
because and I, with all the due respect to Mike Tyson and his extraordinary power, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think underrated with Mike Tyson, and if you're not a boxing, you don't have an eye to boxing, is how accurate his punches were. Because not only was he so strong, but he landed those punches like at an extraordinarily
Mm-hmm.
high level of accuracy. So not only to hit you like a brick, but he was like right on.
Yeah.
But for me, Ali was a much more, and in my age group, Ali, when I was a kid, dominated much of the sports world and certainly all of boxing for
Mm-hmm.
me. But I find him to be almost like a dancer. Like his movements were so fluid and rhythmic that and I think about, well, how would I like to move through life, never mind a fight? Like I think of Ali as being,
Uh,
something, and music and dancing, and for me, I think gymnastics too. Like if you get a gymnast, like a
yeah.
dancer, and you put them in something else, they'll
Oh,
do
for
that
sure.
as well as many people have been doing that for years. Like a gymnast, I think you stick them in almost anything,
Yeah.
they show up with skills that make them,
Mm-hmm.
very, very good at things. And I think dancers are the same way.
Yeah, and I think we have another example. You talk about Ali, and in Jiu-Jitsu we had Leandro Lo. right?
Okay.
That just passed
Oh,
recently.
yes.
But he was a dancer. Like
Oh, I didn't know that.
he liked to dance a lot. If you see
Right.
a lot of his videos fighting, almost after every match, he was like making some steps, celebrating the victory. You
Yeah.
have some videos of him like on the nightclubs and things like that, like dance. You can see that he was enjoying the dance,
Yes.
and he was like just an amazing jiu-jitsu player.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, music to me, like, is a brain body connection thing in a lot of ways. Like, can you hear something and replicate it? And then can you have an internal, like, rhythm that then you express to the world? And when in my moments, as a beginner, when I feel like I'm understanding a jujitsu movement or a transition, they feel fluid to me. They feel rhythmic.
Yeah.
And that in my head and in my body, that has a relationship to, like, my long time ago, I played in a band. Like, if I played a good gig, there was a rhythm to it that, I felt like I played well. And
Wait, you were playing a band?
oh, a long time ago.
Why did I know that?
Yeah, I have friends who are amazing guitar players, so I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am not an amazing guitar player. But I had a few gigs that I had a lot of fun at. And I
Nice.
remember being in a seminar for guitar players, and this guy is teaching us, and he's like, look, and we were going through all this complicated stuff. He said, look, at the end of the day, people come to listen to you play. They just want, can you keep time? Can you just keep like that? Can you just keep, and he compared it to the heartbeat. Like, if you have a heartbeat rhythm, and even if every song is like that, people will come away and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that little moment always stayed with me, because often you can boil things down to a very simple, like, what are we really doing here? And if you can describe it simply and then execute it simply, you can have a good effect.
And that's the drummer. I know we're talking like pretty deep about music now,
Yeah.
and that's the drummer responsibility, right? To
Hmm.
keep the song. Every song will have the different pace,
Right.
and when you call the song, right, you already should call. So that's why the drummer sometimes uh, it doesn't take a lot of credit for people to know that. Always look into the singer, to the
Sure. Yeah.
guitar player, but the drummer and the bass, they will carry the rhythm of the song,
Yes.
right? If I start when I was a drummer, like if I start like whatever song that we were playing a little bit fast or a little bit slow than the actual time of the song, this completely change your feeling about the song.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
not in a like if you don't know much about music, but if you're playing and if you know the music, it will change a lot.
But people, like, they may not know music like as a theory, but they will know that you're doing it wrong. If the drummer and the bass player are not like carrying that
Yeah.
underlying beat, the listener they're uncomfortable. They
It's
may
like
not even,
something, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Something's going on over there. I don't know, but it's weird.
Yeah, but and so, even conversely, if the drummer and the bass player are doing it right, us guitar players and singers
Yeah.
can screw it up and it's still like, okay. So that, yeah, well, I was interested in that. Well, as we come here to the end of our latest podcast, Professor, thanks for sharing. And listen, I really appreciate your willingness to talk about last weekend and share with us both the preparation and the experience, because, it gives us insight into what it's like, someone who's been, 20 years. This tournament is really 20 years in preparation, not 9 months. And,
Right.
I mean, it's a long time to work towards. So I'm grateful for you, talking to us about that.
No, thank you so much, Peter. It's always a pleasure. And I was never a person who was like comfortable enough to keep sharing things like that. And not because I was ashamed or nothing. It's just like because I always think that who am I, right? Like I don't
Right.
have anything to bring to you differently. But more and more, we can see that we can easily relate to people,
Hmm.
and whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm passing, I'm sure I have a lot of people passing through the same things, and we can just help each
Yes.
other out to figure out things, right?
Totally agree.
So
Yeah.
hopefully, on our conversations here, we can encourage people to
Yes.
again to start jiu-jitsu or to keep training or to challenge themselves, and knowing that
Yes.
when the challenge comes, and you don't feel comfortable, you're not the only one. Everyone gonna pass through that. Is your option is your choice to keep pursuing the challenge and grow from that, or give up, right? And you want everyone pursuing the challenge and make yourselves better through that.
Yeah, we know that giving up, I mean, there are times when things need to be, you need to exit, not everything can go on forever, but giving up generally on something that's doing good for you is a bad idea. And so but you need motivation sometimes to keep at it. And I know, Professor, when people listen to you, that they appreciate sort of being able to get insight into your point of view. I think they're motivated by, your discipline, and they recognize, and the maturity in which you kind of approach all these things. So, I think we've gotten a lot of nice feedback about this podcast, and I think it's because of these things that you've brought to it. All right. Well, Professor, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Okay. We'll see you next week.
See ya.